This is Home Games. Thank you for being with us today. I am Scott Radley from the Hamilton Spectator and 900 CHML. That is Rick Zamperin from 900 CHML, Bubba O'Neill from CHCH TV Sports, and Steve Milton from the Hamilton Spectator. And guys, last week, there was a story that I don't think it's an overstatement. I mean, it's a cliche when people say rocked the hockey world. I think it was a fair way to describe what happened with the report about the sexual assault and the non-reporting and all the stuff with the Blackhawks. And then the player who was John Doe came out and identified himself. And Rick, this has led to a number of people saying, you know what, this is a problem with hockey culture that has to be addressed. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, to a point. I don't think it is limited to the hockey world. Obviously, we're seeing people being sexually assaulted outside of hockey, and we've seen it for years. I think the big, there's a couple of factors here. Obviously, that the alleged abuse took place. We do know that Kyle Beach has courageously come out and told his story. But one of the big underlying issues of this is that the Hawks didn't do anything about it because they put the Stanley Cup ahead of one of their own guys, basically. Now, Kyle Beach wasn't a part of the Stanley Cup championship run. He was a player within the organization, never got onto the ice with the Hawks. But for them to sweep that under the rug, to put all their attention on the cup because they didn't want this to be a distraction, I think that is the big scourge on this league right now. Because has it happened with other teams? Does it happen in other leagues? Does it happen in other businesses? For Beach to make mention of this and not get any help is absolutely sad. But I think it goes beyond the hockey culture. Certainly there's a problem with hockey culture, but I think it goes beyond the National Hockey League or any pro hockey league.
There's a big problem with hockey culture, and we've been saying it for a long time. And this isn't the only sort of sphere of interest in which it's happened. It goes back. You can go back to hazing in junior and the blind eye that everybody turns to it. It's just because it's that team thing, and part of the culture. And this is, Rick is right. It isn't limited to hockey. It's in other sports as well. And there's a homophobic part to it where it tends to victimize the victim. Because of the homophobia. There's a spectacular history of racism in the game, both on color and on creed. The treatment of women through the game has been this, and I think a lot of it is just from the insulation that happens. Insulation causes ignorant things to happen, and in hockey, because we're talking about hockey, the insulation is the team thing. And it's not just about winning the Stanley Cup. It's about the team thing, which leads to the Stanley Cup, or to win the Memorial Cup, or to win the Junior A championship, or to win the Triple A city title, all of those kinds of things. And it gets too big to the exclusion of other things. I mean, we've had problems in this game, and we've tended to ignore it. We're still ignoring that it's become a rich person's game as well. All of those kinds of things. And that's from willful ignorance in my mind. So yes, there's a problem.
Scott, I mean, all of you there have hit some interesting points there. Steve, I think you hit the nail on the head, or whatever the stupid saying is, on several topics there, which I've been kind of talking about. And even in our little foursome here, I think I've hinted at and even gone out and maybe put myself on the line by saying a couple of things here. What's bothered me about this, because yes, Rick is right. It just happens in every sport. This kind of, sadly, these kind of cover-ups do happen. We can think of what happened in Penn State for many, many years. But there is something about hockey culture that needs to be examined. And I've said this before in this program, there is a protection of own in this sport, unlike any other sport. And I'm going to open it up to something else here. It goes to media.
Yep.
I give Rick Westhead incredible amount of respect to continue to cover this. And we have talked about sports journalism. This was at its peak. This was at its highest. Someone that followed the story, reported the story, and went somewhere where other people, and I'm going to say even another network, dared not to go because they're the rights holders to this sport. And I hate to say that, because that's a place I spent 11 years and helped, and it's a place that helped hone my skill and to develop maybe a little respect that I've earned within this industry. But it cannot be ignored. I will refuse to believe that there are some very important insiders, people very close to the sport that work for the other network that did not know this was going on or did not cover it the way it was covered on a different network.
And we'll
that
never
bothers me.
know, but we'll never know if TSN had the rights. I believe that Rick Westhead and they would have done it, but we'll never know if this would have, you just don't, the rights money when you're talking, what you're talking about is so big that it affects things. Now, to this point, and you know, all of you have made great points. I'll say this. I agree with what Steve said, that there are problems, but this particular case, I am not chalking up to hockey culture. I mean, it's a terrible thing what's happened here, but when people say this is a problem with hockey culture, as I think it was Bubba just said, Penn State, the U.S. gymnastics team, the U.S. national women's soccer team just had this. We've got a player in baseball right now who signed a huge contract and immediately was suspended for doing stuff. This is bigger. These kind of things happen. This is not a hockey, to me, this is not a hockey culture thing. And I'll say
just sports culture, and hockey is a sport in it. It has it.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
It could make an exception and does not.
I would say sports for sure, but I would say, Steve, it's not just sports. I think it's a societal issue. I think that many companies that have nothing to do with sports presented with the same thing might have done the same by going, oh, we don't have time. And I'll say one other thing, and I want to ask you guys this. Do you believe, because one of the issues here was the leadership was told of this, according to the report, the leadership was told of this an hour after they qualified to play in the Stanley Cup Championship. If it was an NFL team that had just made the Super Bowl game, a Major League Baseball team that just qualified for the World Series, go on and on down the list, do you believe that other than the Chicago Blackhawks, every other team would have said, let's jump on this right away and deal with it? Or would they all have said, we got something to do here, we'll get to that later?
I agree, but that's irrelevant.
I agree it is. No, I agree. I'm saying, to your point then, this is not just a hockey thing. This is a sports thing. This is a societal thing. I don't think this was unique that this would have happened in this circumstance. I think this probably could have been very commonplace in all over the place, all different places this might have happened.
Yeah, I've thought about this in a couple of ways. What if the Hawks weren't in the Stanley Cup final? Would they have addressed this differently?
If this was an end of season thing, end of regular season, yeah, maybe.
If this happened at, let's just say, Apple or Microsoft ahead of a big conference, would this be swept under the rug? If this happened at the city of Hamilton just before, I don't know, whatever big, the Santa Claus parade, would this come out at that time?
You have your answer already. You have your answer already. The answer is no, it would not have, because they had 10 years.
Yeah.
That is the answer. It's already there.
And that's sad. And that's a sad state of affairs.
You know what? And guys, I think
I'm getting mad.
I know. And it's hard not to be emotional about this topic because it affects us all. It's a bad look. It's a bad look. But again, to your original question there, Scott, I disagree again, because to me, the way we report things in sport in Canada compared to the way they do in the United States, you want to believe, whether this was the National Football League, the NBA, or Major League Baseball, if there were ESPN reporters covering this story, this would have been blown wide open years ago, right? There's a certain protectionism. I've used this word before. I'll use it again.
Maybe.
That we have in this sport of hockey, right? It's happened for many years. It's gone to the point where we have had people say, no, we don't have problems with drugs in this sport. We don't have problems with racism in this sport. It is the only sport where I've heard people speak that way, as if hockey is some pristine sport that have no issues,
Not
have
pristine.
no problems.
No,
right?
No,
and these kind of issues have come up in other sports and are broken. Stories are broken by media people in the United States that maybe have a different approach, or, the quote, breaking the story is a bigger deal. I think it is in the United States than it is here, especially when it comes to hockey.
Do you know what's also a bad look, guys, is the NHL fining Chicago $2 million. $2 million. They fined the New Jersey Devils $3 million for circumventing the salary cap back in the Ilya Kovalchuk days.
Wow.
How does this make any sense? Here's the fourth or fifth highest ranked team on Forbes list of NHL franchise values. The Chicago Blackhawks are worth north of $1 billion, and they get a $2 million slap on the wrist.
Does that make the NHL commissioner? Does that make the NHL commissioner complicit in this? Because of if the team didn't look at it if you look at the concept that the team didn't look at it and investigate it and punish it strongly enough, is that what's happening at the top too? Does Bettman have to suddenly say, or somebody say, hey, maybe this commissioner should be suspended here?
See, I don't think
this is on his watch.
I don't think you can say he's complicit, Steve, but I think you may
maybe not
say
complicit,
it shows out of touch. It may show out of touch. Because look, it's again, I want to speak to what Bubba just said, and then back to that one. I am not arguing that hockey does not have problems with its culture. That's not what I'm saying. No. This particular one, I think this thing I believe this would have happened a lot of other places. This is not unique to hockey, is what I'm saying. But it is sports. It is sports, and it is culture. And as Rick says, if you had a major shareholders meeting and we're about to announce, something, and this came up in a major corporation, I don't know, they release it that day. But the shame on this one is not just, and this is what Steve said as well, is not just that they didn't do something that day immediately. Something should have been, but it has gone how many years without something being done. So even if, and I'm not suggesting this was the answer, but even if they said, we will throw all our resources on this after the Stanley Cup championship, still not the right answer, but way better than what they didn't do.
Way less worse. Yeah.
Yeah. Way less worse. Great. Yeah. That's a great way of saying it. And that wasn't done either. So what do you think? Let us know. It's a really interesting topic. It's an unfortunate topic, quite honestly. I don't know if interesting is really the best word for that one. It is an unfortunate topic. Is this a hockey culture thing? Is this a sports culture thing? Is this a culture thing? Love to hear from you. Our Twitter handles are going to be up on the screen. Comment down below. Follow us, by the way, on these ones on Home Games. We'd love to have you follow along. Thanks for tuning in.